Please demonstrate that you know how to conduct a vehicle inspection as you would normally do for any vehicle you'd like to operate. You are to conduct a vehicle inspection as outlined in Chapter 11 of the CDL Driver's Manual. You may use the vehicle inspection memory aid provided in the CDL Driver Manual. As you do your inspection, please point to or touch the item or items you are inspecting and fully explain what you are inspecting for each item. If you do not do so, you will not get credit for that item. We'll begin with the items in the engine compartment. Once completed, you are to get into the vehicle and perform your cab check and engine start. After completed the cab check and engine start, shut the engine off. Proceed down to the driver's side of the vehicle. If there are any items unique to the other side of the vehicle, inspect those items. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Let's go.
All right, Mr. Examiner, we're going to look at my 3 L's. I'm looking for leans, lights, and leaks. My leans, I'd be looking for any kind of load shift, broken suspension, or flat tires. Next, I'm going to look at my clearance lights. They're properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken. Amber in color. I'm going to look at my headlights. My headlights are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, and free of condensation. My leaks. I'm looking for leaks underneath the truck. Antifreeze, oil, automatic transmission fluid, or diesel fuel. All right, I'm going to lift up. I'm going to check the engine compartment. I'm going to look at my coolant reservoir. My coolant reservoir is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking, and filled to the proper level. I'm going to look at my hoses. All my hoses are all properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or leaking. They're secured at the back, front, top, and bottom. Coming on down, I'm going to look at my water pump. My water pump is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. It is belt driven. I'm looking at the belt. My belt is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, torn, ripped, or frayed, and should not have more than a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of free play. Next, I'm looking at my frame. My frame is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, or bent. Does not have any illegal welds or drill holes. As I'm walking back on up, I'm going to look at my hood mirror. My hood mirror is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing. Coming to this side. I'm going to start in the back. In the back there is my power steering pump. My power steering pump is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. It is gear driven. In front of that is my air compressor. My air compressor is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. It is also gear driven. In front, right now, I'm looking at my power steering reservoir. Power steering reservoir is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or leaking, and filled to the proper level. Next to that is my oil. My oil is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I would check the dipstick for any kind of metal shavings or any kind of milky substance would indicate water in it. Next, I'm going to look at my alternator. My alternator is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, and the bolts are not missing. The cables are corrosion free. Next, it is belt driven. My belt is not torn, ripped, or frayed, and does not have more than a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of free play. Coming on out to my steering gearbox. My steering gearbox is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I'm looking at the hoses. The hoses are properly mounted and secured at the top and at the bottom, and the hoses are not cracked, damaged, or leaking. Dropping on down, I'm looking at my steering linkage, top and bottom. My steering linkage is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or unusually bent. It is locked in place with 2 castle nuts, one here in the front, one in the back, and locked in place with cotter pins. Behind that is my leaf spring hangers. I'm looking at the front and rear. They are both properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing any nuts or bolts. Looking at my leaf springs. My leaf springs are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, broken, or missing, and they are not scissored. They are held in place with a U-bolts. My U-bolts are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, and the nuts are not missing. Next, I'm looking at my shock absorber. My shock absorber is properly mounted and secured at the top and at the bottom. It's not cracked, damaged, or bent, or leaky. I'm going to go into my brake system. I'm looking at my air lines. My air lines are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or leaking. They go into my brake chamber. My brake chamber is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. It has a brake chamber clamp. My brake chamber clamp is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or loose. I'm going to look at my push rod. My push rod is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or bent. It should be at 90 degrees to my slack adjuster. My slack adjuster with the wheels chalk and brakes released, I should not have more than 1 inch of free play. Next, I'm going to look at my brake drums. My brake drums are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing. Free of debris, not oil soaked, and no discoloration. Discoloration would indicate overheating. Next, I'm looking at my brake shoes or brake pads. They are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, broken, or missing. Free of debris and not oil soaked. And it should not have no less than a 1/4 inch of pad left. Next, I'm going to look at both sidewalls on my steer tires for abrasions, bulges, or cuts. Tread, I'm looking for even tread wear all the way around the steer tire. Checked with a gauge. I should not have no less than 4/32 of tread left, checked with a gauge. Next, I'm going to come out here. I'm going to look at the wheel bead. The wheel bead all the way around is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or bent. I'm going to look for any kind of illegal welds on my rims or any spider webs or fractures going from vent hole to vent hole or vent hole down to my lug nuts. All my lug nuts are all properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or missing. If they were loose, I could see rust trails or shiny threads. That would indicate looseness. My valve, my hub seal. My hub seal is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking, and it's filled to the proper level. My valve stem is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. It has a metal cap onto it, checked with a gauge, 100 PSI or manufacturer's specification. Let's shut my hood. I'm going to come here. I'm going to look at my mirrors. My mirrors are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing. My steps. My steps are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or missing any nuts or bolts, and free of debris. Behind that is my battery box. My battery box is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking, and the cables are corrosion free. Next, I'm going to open up and close my door. My door opens up and closes. Come here, roll my window down. Goes up. I'm going to leave it down. Next are my hinges. My hinges are all properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or loose. My door seal. My door seal is a nice tight fit all the way around the door. It's not cracked, damaged, or missing. I'm going to go to my emergency equipment. My fire extinguisher is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken. It is filled to the proper level. If I'm hauling hazmat, it should be at least a 10 BC. Next, I'm going to grab back here my triangles. My reflective triangles, they are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, and good working condition. I also have fuses or breakers if my truck needs it. This time I'm going to grab my chalk block, put it underneath the tire for doing my air brake test. All right, Mr. Examiner, can you help me with my light test? Clearance lights, headlights, bright lights, left, right, 4 ways, All right, Mr. Examiner, can you come to the side of the truck? I have a cab light right here that is on my four ways right now, and it is also my left turn signal. Could you look to the top of the trailer? That is my clearance light, amber in color. Could you step to the back of the tractor, please? So to the back of the tractor is my running lights, left turn signal, right turn signal, four ways, and brake lights. All right, Mr. Examiner, go to halfway down the trailer. You're going to see an amber colored light. Amber colored light. It is also a marker light, left turn signal, and four way. Can you go to the end of the trailer? You're going to see an amber colored light. It's going to be my ABS light. You should have a red marker light on right now. I'm going to turn the truck off and on. All right, can you go to the back of the tractor and trailer? All the way around. Running lights, clearance lights, left, right, four way, and brake lights. All right, Mr. Examiner, can you join me in the cab? All right, Mr. Examiner, I'm going to put my seatbelt on. Can you put yours on? While I'm doing that, what I'm checking for that it latches, unlatches, and latches in. Checking for any kind of tears, rips, or frays into it, and it's adjusted for my liking. Next, I'm doing my windows. My windows are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or leaking. Do not have any illegal stickers onto it. Next, I'm going to look at my windshield. My windshield is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, or leaking, and also does not have any illegal stickers. I'm going to get back to it, but I'm going to look at my windshield wipers right now. My windshield wipers are a nice tight fit to the windshield, and the blades are not torn, ripped, or frayed. Next, I'm going to look at my mirrors. My mirrors are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, and they're adjusted for my liking. Mr. Examiner, I'm going to do a safe start. I am in neutral. My brakes are set. My foot on the brake. Start it up. My ABS lights come on and went off. I'm looking at my oil pressure. My oil pressure is on the rise and adequate for this truck. Right above that is my temperature gauge. My temperature gauge is on the rise and adequate for this truck. It's in between 180 and 200 degrees. Next is my voltage. It's in between 12 and 14. Mine is at 13.9. Next is my air pressure gauges. My air pressure is in between 120 to 140 psi. Adequate enough to do an air brake test. Coming out. My dash lights come on, go off. My four ways. My left turn signal. My right turn signal, my bright lights, my windshield washers and wipers, my highway horn, city horn. On a 20-inch wheel, I should not have more than 2 inches of free play or 10 degrees. 2 complete turns. 1, 2. From there, I'm going to look at my defrosters. They work. Down here, my heater. It works. All right, Mr. Examiner, I'm going to go into my air brake test. I'm going to turn my truck off. Leave my truck in neutral, and turn my truck off. Turn my key back on. Release my brakes. Let that air settle down. I'm going to do an air leakage test. What that is, I'm going to hold my service brake down for 1 minute. I should not lose 4 psi in that 1 minute. I didn't lose more than 4 psi in that 1 minute, so that was a good test. My next test is going to be my low air pressure warning test. My lights and buzzers should come on at or before 60 psi. I'm going to fan my brakes. One, two, and three. All three of them came on at 60 psi, so that was a good test. My next test is my emergency spring brake test, or automatic spring brake test. I'm going to fan my brakes again. My trailer will come out before my tractor, or they both come out at the same time. And that'll happen between 20 and 40 psi. One, two. They both popped out at 20 psi, so that was a good test. All right, Mr. Examiner, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and release my chalk block so I can do my air governor kick in and kick out, my parking brake test, and my service brake test. 3 points of contact going out. Shut my door. Three points of contact coming in. Redo my seat belt. I'm going to do a safe start. My brakes are set. My truck is in neutral. Start the truck. My ABS lights come on and went off. I'm going to rev this up to 1300 RPMs. My needles are moving, so my air governor kicked in. So my air governor kick out should be between 120 and 140 psi. My air governor kicked out. It's 120, 140 psi. That was a good test. Now I'm going to do my parking brake test. I'm going to put my truck in drive, release my trailer brake. I'm going to test my tractor brake. Give it a little tug. That was a good test. Set my trailer brake now, release my tractor brake, and give that a little tug. That's a good test. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to put my hands here at the 9 and 3 position. What that's going to test for is on my service brake test. I'm going to roll about 5 miles an hour. apply my service brake test. What that'll test is to see if I'm having any pull on my brake chambers, if I have my ABS light come on my trailer or on my dash. If I do, I'll take it to the shop immediately and get it fixed. Roll about 5 miles an hour. My ABS light didn't come on my trailer or on my dash, but if it did, I would take it to the shop immediately and get it fixed. I also didn't feel any pull in my steering wheel, so all my brakes are set. That concludes the in-cab inspection here. Can you join me on the outside and continue on with my pre-trip? All right, Mr. Examiner, we're going to come out here and check the side of the tractor for any kind of tears, rips, or damage to it. I had you check this light. It's amber in color. It's a cab light, amber in color. It's properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken. It is a left turn signal and 4-way. As I come back here, I'm going to look at my steps, my catwalk steps. They're properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken. Free of debris, not missing any nuts or bolts. I'm going to look at my catwalk. My catwalk is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken. Free of debris. It's not missing any nuts or bolts. My air lines and electric lines are not touching or rubbing onto the catwalk. Next, I'm going to look at my 4 white reflectors. My 4 white reflectors are up on the top. They're properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing. Next is my work light. My work light is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken. It is white in color. I'm going to come down here to my cab airlines. My tractor airlines are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or leaking. Underneath that is my electric plug or electric line. My electric line is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, torn, ripped, or frayed. It has a safety latch. Right underneath that is my fuel tank strap hanger. My hanger is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, and not missing any nuts or bolts. My fuel tank is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. My fuel tank cap, it's properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. Next, I'm going to look at my drive shaft. My drive shaft is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or bent. The U-joints that hold in front and rear, they're properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or missing any nuts or bolts, and free of debris. Next, I'm going to look at my splash guard. My splash guard is properly mounted and secured. It's not torn, ripped, or frayed, and covers both of my bud wheels. My bud wheels are evenly spaced and free of debris. Next, I'm going to look at my torque arm spring hanger. My torque arm spring hanger is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing any nuts or bolts. I'm going to look at my torque arm control arm down here. It's nut and bolt. It is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing. My torque arm spring. My torque arm spring is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, or scissored. I'm looking at the U-bolts. My U-bolts are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, and the nuts are not loose or missing. Behind that is my shock absorber. My shock absorber is properly mounted and secured at the top and bottom. It's not cracked, damaged, or bent, or leaking. Next, I'm going to look at my airbag mounts. My airbag mounts are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing any nuts or bolts. The airbags are not cracked, damaged, or leaking. Next, I'm going to go into my brake assembly. My brake assembly, my airlines are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I'm going to go into my brake chamber. My brake chamber is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. It's held together with brake chamber clamp. My brake chamber clamps are properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, or loose, or missing. Looking at my push rod. My push rod is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or bent. It should be a 90 degrees to my slack adjuster. My slack adjuster with the wheels chalked, brakes released. I should not have more than 1 inch of free play. My brake drums. I'm looking at my brake drums. My brake drums are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing. Free of debris. not oil soaked, and no discoloration. Discoloration would indicate overheating. Next is my brake shoes or brake pads. My brake pads are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing. Free of debris, not oil soaked, and no less than a 1/4 inch of pad left. On both tires, all 4 sidewalls, I'm looking for abrasions, bulges, and cuts. Both tires, I'm looking for even tread wear all the way around the tires. Checked with a gauge, I should not have no less than 2/32 of tread left, checked with a gauge. Next, I'm going to check the wheel beads all the way around. They're properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or bent. I'm looking for any kind of illegal welds or fractures or spider webbing going from vent hole to vent hole or vent hole to my lug nuts. My lug nuts are all properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken. I'm looking for rust trails or shiny threads. That would indicate looseness. My hub seal is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. Next, I'm going to look for my valve stems. I have one here on the outer tire and one on the inner tire. They are both properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or leaking, and they both have metal caps. Checked with a gauge, 100 PSI or manufacturer's specifications. What I did with this axle, I would do exact same thing with this axle. Next, I'm going to look at my coupling system. My coupling system, my apron is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, or bent. No illegal welds or cracks into it. There is no gap between that and the skid plate. With my skid plate, I should have properly greased. My skid plate is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken. My skid plate sits on a platform. My platform is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken. My mounting rail is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken, not missing any nuts or bolts. I have 3 locking pins. My 3 locking pins are in the full lock position. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken. They work off an air actuator. My air actuator is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, or leaking. Next, I'm looking at my release handle. My release handle is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, or bent, and in a locked position. Next, I'm going to come back here and look at my mud flaps. My mud flaps are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, torn, ripped, or frayed. No more than 8 inches from the ground and no less than 3 inches from the ground. They're covering both of my Bud wheels. They have DOT red reflectors on the mud flaps. I have my reflectors here on the back. I had you check my red lights. They are my running lights, left and right turn signals, and brake lights. Next, I'm going to look at my kingpin. My kingpin is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or bent, or loose. It is surrounded by locking jaws. My locking jaws are properly mounted and secured and tight around the kingpin. I'm going to spin around. I'm going to look at my cross members. My cross members are all properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken, and not missing any nuts or bolts. My landing gear. I'm looking at my landing gear. It's all properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken. The welds are not cracked or broken, and the nuts are not missing. Bolts or nuts are not missing. My landing pads are in the full upright position. As I come out, I'm looking for the clearance between my landing gear and the truck. My crank handle is in the full lock position and locked in the cradle. My bulkhead is properly mounted and secured, does not have any holes or tears, rips into it. It's not missing any rivets or bolts. Next is my airlines. My airlines are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or leaking to the front of the trailer. My electric line to the front of the trailer is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, torn, ripped, or frayed. My clearance light, amber in color, is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, broken, or missing. Looking down the side of the trailer, I'm looking for any kind of tears, rips, holes, missing rivets, or bolts. Next, I'm going to look at my Red and white DOT reflector, at least 90% present. It is a marker light, amber in color, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken. It is a marker light, left turn signal light, and a four-way light. Coming back here to my sliding tandems, I'm looking at my air lines. My air lines are all properly mounted and secured, and electric lines are all properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, torn, ripped, or frayed, or leaking. It goes into my tandem frame. My tandem frame is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or bent. My tandem release pins, locking pins. My locking pins are fully locked in that lock position and out. From there, I'm going to come on down to my tandem release handle. My tandem release handle is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or bent, and in the locked position. My tandem hanger. My tandem hanger is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken. The weld is not cracked or broken. My control arm nut and bolt. It's properly mounted, secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose. My control arm is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or bent. I'm looking at my leaf springs. My leaf spring is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, scissored, or missing any. It is held in place with U-bolts. My U-bolts are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing any nuts, or nuts are not loose or missing. Next, I'm going to look at my airlines. My airlines are properly mounted and secured into brake assembly. They're properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. Goes into my brake chamber. My brake chamber is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, damaged, or leaking. It's held in place with a brake chamber clamp. My brake chamber clamp is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose or missing. Goes to my push rod. My push rod is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or bent. It should be 90 degrees to my slack adjuster. My slack adjuster, with the wheels chalked, brakes released, I should not have more than 1 inch of free play. Next, I'm looking at my brake drums. My brake drums are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing, free of debris, not oil soaked, or no discoloration. Discoloration would indicate overheating. Looking at my brake shoes. My brake shoes are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or missing, free of debris, not oil soaked, and no less than 1/4 inch of pad left. Next, I'm going to look at my bud wheels. My bud wheels are properly mounted and secured, evenly spaced, and free of debris. All 4 sidewalls on both tires do not have any abrasions, bulges, or cuts. Even tread wear on both tires. Even tread wear on both tires. Checked with a gauge. What I'm looking there is checked with a gauge. No less than 2/32 of tread left with a gauge. Wheel bead. My wheel bead all the way around is properly mounted, secured, not cracked, damaged, or bent. Looking for any kind of illegal welds, fractures, or spider webbing going from vent hole to vent hole, or vent hole to my lug nuts. All my lug nuts are all properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or leaking, or missing. I'm looking for any kind of rust trails or shiny threads. That would indicate looseness. My axle hub. My axle hub is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. Looking at my valve stems. I have one here on the outer tire and one on the inner tire. Both are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or leaking. Both have metal caps onto them. Checked with a gauge, 100 PSI, or manufacturer specification. What I said with this axle, I do the exact same thing with this axle. Coming back here to my mud flap. My mud flap is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken, not torn, ripped, or frayed. It's covering both of my bud wheels. It's no more than 8 inches and no less than 3 inches from the ground. Next, I'm going to look at my door hook. My door hook is properly mounted, secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing. My ABS light, I had you check that. It's amber in color, properly mounted and secured. Amber in color, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken. My marker light, red in color, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken. Come to the back of the trailer. Had you check all my lights. I'm going to start up there. My 3 clearance lights The red in color, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken, and clean. I have my 3 latches up on the top, 3 latches down here on the bottom. They are all properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, and in the locked position. Underneath that is my door seal. My door seal is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or missing. Next to that is my door hinges. All my door hinges are all properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or missing any nuts or bolts. Coming down, I'm going to look at my DOT red and white reflector, 100% across the bottom of the door. I have my white reflectors. They're properly mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing. My doors are properly mounted and secured, and the handles are in a latch position. My door ties are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, or missing. My tail lights, my brake lights and turn signal lights, they're red in color. They're properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken, and free of condensation. Mr. Examiner, what I said on that, on the left-hand side, I would do the exact same thing on the right-hand side here, except for 3 exceptions. Amber in color, it's a properly mounted secured marker light. It is also a marker light, right turn signal light, and a 4-way light. Next thing I'm going to look at is my emergency release pin. 5th wheel release pins. Right here, it's properly mounted, secure, not cracked, damaged, or bent, or missing. Last thing I'm going to look at is my exhaust. My exhaust is not touching or rubbing onto anything. It's not cracked, damaged, or it's properly mounted, secured, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. If it was leaking, I would see black soot or rust. At that time, if I think I missed anything, I would say it, but I finished with my pre-trip. That concludes my pre-trip. Now think about what you may have missed before you tell the examiner you have finished. You can still catch and fix mistakes. Thank you.